Welcome to the Colleges That Change Lives virtual college fair today. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening. Be sure to sign up for additional ones where you signed up for this one. And this presentation is being recorded, and it'll be available within about a week, again, at the same website where you registered. That's all the housekeeping stuff I have, so I will step out of the way and turn it over to our presenters from St. John's College.
Hey there. Yeah, so we're coming in from St. John's College today. We've got two campuses, one in Annapolis, Maryland, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and you're actually seeing folks from both campuses. You'll probably notice that I've got a kind of mountainy, woodsy, well, deserty, woodsy looking background. So I'm based on the Santa Fe campus, so is my colleague Armando, and Amanda Stevens is on the, well, not right now on, but based on the Annapolis campus. Yeah. So I don't know if, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. We're going to share a PowerPoint with you. Armando and I are going to be kind of tag teaming that PowerPoint, and Amanda will be keeping an eye on chat, the Q&A for any of your questions. So please feel free to add questions in there at any time while we're doing the PowerPoint session as well. And I think we'll try to have some time at the end for just questions possibly also, but please do go ahead and ask questions as soon as they arise. And now I'm going to share my screen. It's going to be super smooth and professional because I've been using Zoom for a while now and I should know how to do this really well. Let's see what happens. All right. Okay, so I think I'm now sharing a very large version of the St. John's College CLE. Okay, good, yeah. So I'll just kind of get started. So St. John's College, obviously we're one of the colleges that change lives. And this is what Lauren Pope and his team had to say about us. St. John's is a school for the intellectual explorer. If you're game for an adventure that equips you to think and communicate about complex ideas with a collegial community of scholars, St. John's might be your nirvana. I graduated from St. John's myself, actually after finding out about it through Colleges That Change Lives, and I think CTCL has a very good picture of who we are and who would enjoy their time at St. John's. Yeah, we do things quite differently than most schools, even differently than other CTCL schools, which is part of why the New York Times called us the most contrarian college in America. We sort of are doing things our own way. A lot of the features that you might expect or associate with a college, like lecture classes or textbooks, are not things that you'll find at St. John's. We are actually known for, sorry, something just our Great Books program, which I'll tell you more about, but it's completely discussion-based classes, completely Great Books, all original sources. And then, like I said, we've got two campuses. So here's Annapolis, Maryland. This is actually where St. John's was founded. It was founded in 1696, making us the third oldest college in the country. This is where I attended as a student, although I'm based in Santa Fe now. So it's right in the heart of the historic downtown there in Annapolis. You've got Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, both about 30 minutes away. There's a college shuttle that goes to the nearest metro station even, so you can take the metro into DC, kind of do all kinds of things. You can even actually catch an Amtrak train from that station to take you as far as Philadelphia or New York City for like a weekend trip or a day trip. So you sort of have a lot of that East Coast, trying to think of a better word than the vibe, feel. You've got a lot of population centers around you. You're on the East Coast, you're on the water. That's the gist of what I'm trying to get across. Annapolis was ranked as one of the best college towns. It's the sailing capital of America. Like I said, very close to Washington, D.C., and a lot of free Smithsonian museums, and of course, government things going on. When I was a student, I actually watched oral arguments at the Supreme Court one day when I didn't have morning classes. So there's a lot you can do there. And we have the largest croquet match in the country. I think in the world, although I'm not sure if that's an official record. Yeah, I think in the world. And that arose because Also in Annapolis, Maryland, is the United States Naval Academy. And at some point, well, one of the folks running the Naval Academy and some Johnnies were talking, and they suggested that there was no sport at which St. John's could possibly beat the Naval Academy. And we said, no sport at all, like no, like any sport, any sport. And they said, any sport. And we said, we challenge you to a croquet match. And it's sort of become a huge event. It actually sells out every year now. We have to sell tickets to control the crowd. We sell, I think, 5,000 tickets. And then we have, in addition, St. John's students and midshipmen there for a crowd of about 6 or 7,000. The Johnnies do hold the overall winning record in the match, which we're very proud of. And it's a really kind of fun, kind of quirky event. It really displays kind of a lot of what I think St. John's is about. Our other campus is in Santa Fe, New Mexico, kind of across the country in the southwest, on the southern kind of edge of the Rocky Mountains. And then just south of us is sort of, the desert of New Mexico. This is a pretty good overlook of campus. I recommend this as a reading spot if you ever do come out to Santa Fe. You'll notice that it's a little less downtown than Annapolis. That's actually one of the other differences, is that you're about a mile from like the start of like restaurants and art galleries, which is sort of what Santa Fe is known for. So things are a little quieter. You have less population centers around, and then as a trade-off, you do have significantly more hiking trails. Also ranked among the best college towns in the US, one of the largest art markets in the country, and 478 miles of hiking and biking trails near campus. So there's a huge outdoor program there. There's 79 ski trails as well, so there's ski trips and things like that. And New Mexico is the chili pepper capital of America, if you're interested in spicy food. The state question is red or green, and you'll understand better what that means if you come out here. But yeah, so 2 great campuses, both in fantastic towns, and in very different areas of the country. Our students actually have the chance to, oh dear, I've stopped screen sharing. Hang on one second. While I'm trying to get my screen back together, students do actually have the chance to attend both campuses during their time at St. John's, if they would like. You can you can start on the Annapolis campus, spend a year in Santa Fe, and then come right on back. You could do 2 years at each campus, so you have the chance to kind of explore these very different areas of the country. Yeah. And I think, oh, there we go, yeah. So both campuses share a great books curriculum. That's what makes you able to switch back and forth. So what we're doing is effectively a 4-year interdisciplinary curriculum, pretty much all required. And all of our students are following through this 4-year reading list of some of the great books of the Western canon. And that really ranges in subject from things that you might think of as, when you think of the great books, you might think first, Shakespeare, or Jane Austen, or Plato, a lot of literature and philosophy, and we do study a lot of that, but also the great thinkers of chemistry and physics, mathematics, even music. So it's sort of, in some ways, it's like the uber liberal arts education, where our students are being asked to study a little bit of everything. So as you can see, over your 4 years, you're kind of starting with the oldest works chronologically, the ancient Greeks, and you're working your way forward in time through your senior year. Yeah, and it's a wide range of things. A totally interdisciplinary curriculum. This just gives you a picture of kind of roughly what your studying is going to break down into subjects. And it's worth actually noting that even though this is an accurate range of the subjects you'll study, I think these aren't even broken down into classes this individual. For instance, you're not going to have a psychology class at St. John's, or specifically a literature class at St. John's. Even within the classes themselves, individual classes, things are very interdisciplinary. And so you'll be asked to study very widely by the time you graduate. I think, no, I don't even think, I don't know of any other college where you would study this widely by the time you graduate. I think there may be other colleges where you could somehow manage to construct something close to this. But this is the only curriculum I know that just says, hey, you're gonna see a little bit of everything. by the time you graduate. Although we're a very small school, about 500 students uh, per campus, we've definitely attracted the notice of a lot of national organizations, not just colleges that change lives, although that may be my favorite. We're ranked very well, as you can see, for undergraduate teaching, for the accessibility of our professors. We don't even call them professors, we call them tutors. They facilitate discussion in our classes. Um, Best college for debaters, I think, because all of our classes are discussion based. So you always kind of have the chance to debate and argue your point. Most international students, excellent college towns. And what you're seeing here also is a picture of the kind of typical St. John's classroom. Um, so as opposed to a lecture hall where you have someone kind of up in front telling you what's going on, in each St. John's classroom, you and your classmates are meeting around a table with with the faculty members and kind of having a discussion on equal footing about what does this mean that we've read. Um, this looks like it's a math class here. So, you get up and you'll do the math at the board, obviously in math class, and in our lab classes, you'll work through experiments, there's bench work involved, but the core of any St. John's classroom is that table and the discussion that occurs at it. A lot of our tutors often say, all you really need to have a St. John's class is a table and a chalkboard, and then you're set, well, and chairs. So you might be asking, so okay, if everybody studies the same thing, what does that mean for when you graduate? So it's true, if you study the same thing, you don't have a major. Everyone graduates with a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts. So it's like, okay, well, that's well enough. But then what do you do with a Bachelor of Liberal Arts? What do our alumni do? What do people who go to this program do? And the answer is a little bit of everything. These are just some of our notable alums. You can see they range from prominent winemakers. We got a screenwriter, folks working in policy and government, folks working in journalism. And just among my friends, so I graduated 4 years ago now. Um, I have a friend in particle physics, a couple friends in math PhDs that make my head spin, a few friends who are classroom teachers, friends in computer science, many friends with the job title analyst. That tends to be popular with Johnnies because we're good at that definitely by the time we graduate. But really, the field's very, very widely. And the kind of skills that you've effectively honed in 4 years of discussion classes where you're being asked to read these, to be frank, quite difficult, great books, and come to class with questions about them, opinions on them, and kind of work through them with your classmates, make you extremely well suited for higher education or really just about any job that's going to want you to be able to, think well, learn quickly, write well, communicate. Other than that, you're probably out of luck, but anything in that range, you're going to be good with, which covers just about anything I can. So maybe as a program as unusual as this, how does admissions work? And the answer is that we're doing admissions in a very holistic way. Um, like many colleges, we're test optional. The only thing that maybe makes us unusual is we've been test optional for about 40 years now, meaning that if you have taken an SAT or ACT, and you got an amazing score and you want to submit it, that's totally fine. Yeah, like go for it. If you haven't had the chance to take it or take it as many times as you would like during this pandemic, or if you just don't think your score is going to be the thing that represents you the best, there's no need to submit that. We are completely holistic in both admissions and merit aid. So not submitting a test score won't disadvantage you in admissions decisions or in merit aid decisions. Yeah. What we do look for is the right fit for St. John's, an intellectually curious student and someone who's going to really thrive in these discussion classes in this interdisciplinary program. Oh, yeah, no, actually, sorry, I want to stay on that slide for a minute. So probably the most important thing for us is the essay. We're going to ask you to write an essay, minimum 400 words, no maximum. The record is 90 pages. That is not a suggestion. Please do not try to break it. But if you send us 90 pages, we'll read them. We want you to have the space you need to talk about a book that you think is great and why it's great. We think that's a great chance to get to know who you are a little bit better and also to see how you interact with a text. It doesn't have to be a work of literature. It doesn't have to be something that you read in one of your AP classes. Just something that's meaningful to you and that you feel like you can really make the argument for this is why this book is great. Yeah, and I've seen them written on everything from like the Red Badge of Courage to uh, some on Harry Potter to this is less usual, but I've even seen them on things like math papers or math textbooks. I've seen a couple. So whatever's the thing for you. That's our main thing. Other than that, we've got no application fee. We take the common application, the coalition application, our own application. They're all online. Just do whichever one makes the most sense and is easiest for you. There's no preference. And there are no additional requirements for merit aid. So in addition to being test optional for merit aid, you're just automatically considered for merit aid while you're being considered for admission. Yeah. So I also want to break down what is still for us a relatively new financial model. So we have a low student to faculty ratio. We don't use adjuncts. We don't use, you're not going to have a TA in front of your class. It's always going to be a full-time tenure track faculty member here at St. John's. So the cost to educate a St. John's student in a small class with tenure track faculty can be very high. But we really understand that college expenses have gotten out of control. So we recently reduced our tuition down to $35,000. That's the maximum that you would pay for tuition. That'd be before any aid. And we have generous need-based aid available as well as merit-based aid. In fact, due to a recent donation, we're also able to match Pell grants. So some of you may know what that is, some of you may not. But effectively, we have other forms of aid to help make sure that we're able to tailor those financial aid packages. We have a wide range of students attending St. John's that are able to attend St. John's. And I do speak from experience here. I spent a lot of time in the financial aid office, both as an applicant to St. John's and then frankly, even a couple times during my time at St. John's. So we're able to be very responsive and our financial aid folks work very hard to tailor the package to you as much as possible because we don't want finances to be the reason that anyone leaves St. John's or can't attend. Yeah. And so Amanda made this presentation. So this is her here. I apologize, I meant to add mine and Armando's as well, but our information is online. You can sign up for a one-on-one appointment with us. You can email us anytime. We'll be happy to chat with you and talk more about St. John's. Yeah, and I think that is all for the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share here. Now, I admit I did not have my watch on me, so we have a bit more time than expected, but I think we've got some questions, so we'll kind of dip into that Q&A. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like, thank you so much, David. It does look like we have a few questions coming through. And I know that you had mentioned that St. John's is test optional, but the question here, I think if I'm getting to the heart of the question, and please correct me, student, if I'm wrong, but they want to know if we really are test optional and whether it's a trick and how we will use test scores if we do receive them.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know and I think we all know there's a lot of kind of fear and worry out there about, particularly this year, like our college is really test optional. Are we going to view it as something like that you did the bare minimum? The answer is yes, we're really test optional for St. John's, and no, it's not going to harm you at all not to submit test scores. If we do receive test scores, we'll just use it as one other part of that holistic package. Not even the biggest part for us. So it's not like we're going to use test scores to drastically change your admissions decision or merit aid. They don't have that huge of an effect for us during the admissions process, even when sent. And there's certainly no penalty for not sending them. It is truly and actually optional here at St. John's. Yeah, and I think particularly this year, so we do take, by the way, if you want to send a test score, we'll view the SAT, the ACT, or the classical learning test. Some of you may not know that. Others of you may have taken that. I know that's been offered online. So that's one of the tests that's sort of still up and running through this pandemic. So we're happy to see any of those if you want to send them. But again, completely optional. And I think that's been our philosophy for a long time here now, just because we don't necessarily think that that's the best representation of all students for a number of reasons. And one of them specific to St. John's is that multiple choice tests are sort of thin on the ground here. When you get to St. John's, we're not often going to ask you to memorize vocabulary information and then regurgitate it at the end of the term on a test. There are no finals. You're evaluated much more on just sort of Are you active in class discussion? You know, not do you know all the answers all the time, but just are you part of the conversation? Are you asking questions? Are you doing your best to work through your confusions in class? And then also you'll be writing essays for every class, including math and science, kind of analytic essays throughout each semester. So your evaluation is based much more on that, even while it's much more holistic, even while you're at St. John's, even after the admissions process. So it just doesn't make sense for us to put this huge weight on like, well, you know, you're not so good at answering math questions if I put you in a gym for 2 hours, because it's just not going to happen here. So it's not necessarily the best indicator for us. Yeah. Let's see.
So talking a little bit more about holistic admissions, can you maybe describe what we're looking for in a student and what would make a good Johnny?
Yeah. So I think that CTCL quote at the beginning of the presentation, where it said, I always love that phrase, intellectual explorers. And I mean, Armando, free to jump in here as well on this. But I think that's a phrase that really describes it really well for me. Another phrase I hear is intellectually curious. We have very intellectually curious students. If you are the sort of person who just thinks a lot of these things are fascinating, like it doesn't necessarily, it's not that every subject has to be your best subject. You don't have to be, you know, like, oh, I love calculus just as much as I love English class. It's okay if you have a favorite. I certainly did and do. But more just like, this is all kind of interesting to me, all worth exploring. It's something that I want the chance to explore to form this kind of well-rounded worldview. If you're the type of person who's still talking about some of these things after class ends, you'll definitely find your people here at St. John's. So yeah, I think that's the thing I tend to go is sort of that intellectual curiosity and that willingness to explore intellectually. I guess the only other thing I'd add is if you're up for a certain amount of challenge. I think St. John's is kind of the perfect place to really challenge and push yourself in terms of your like intellectual growth and your growth as a person. In the sense that there's a lot of challenge here through the text, through what you're being asked to do day in, day out through classes, but at the same time, there's an incredible amount of support. This is a place that's designed to challenge students, but it's not meant to be like, oh, you like didn't make the cut, yeah, or something like that. We have academic assistance programs. You can always meet your tutors one-on-one. I particularly freshman year, not every night of the week, but at least 2 or 3 nights per week, I would just take my Greek homework, whatever I was translating in language class, because we do language, we study ancient Greek freshman, sophomore year, and just go to the coffee shop and sit down next to the Greek assistant on the assumption that I would be asking questions at some point in the evening. And that really got me through. So I think you don't have to worry about whether, I don't think you need to worry about whether, you know, you're already the smartest person in the room or something like that. I've very few rooms. I've been alone in a room occasionally, but beyond that, that's not me and that's not many St. John's students. It's although it is also, I've had some classmates who are incredible, but the point more is just that you're excited by this, you want to do it, and you're kind of willing, you're up for a challenge. Yeah, I think they do. Is that fair to say? Is there anything you guys would add?
I think you put that exceptionally well. In terms of academic profile, we see a wide range. We have students that were valedictorians in high school, and then we see students that really struggled to find their place for one reason or another. And we are going to look at your academic transcript. We want to see that you challenged yourself academically, that you have the background necessary to be productive in our classes. But we purposely do not put a minimum expectation on students in terms of GPA. And that's how we're able to accept such a wide range of students. And as David was saying, we're looking for students that are intellectually curious, love learning, and that comes through in different ways. We depend a lot on the essay and our interview, if we have one with you, to get to know you beyond what your test scores and your GPA alone would reveal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point as well. We often get asked, like, is there a minimum GPA? Are there certain prerequisites that I have to have taken? And yeah, no, we're looking at students from a wide range of situations, and we've had a wide range of relationships, you know, kind of with high school, to put it frankly. Yeah, that's very well said.
Is there a way that a student applying to St. John's can make themselves stand out in the application process?
Oh, that's a really good question. and I think we should, um, let's see. I think for me as a reader, there are uh, a few places. If you've attended a presentation like this, or if you're watching this, um, or you attend one of our virtual visits where you can chat with a current student, schedule an appointment with a counselor, just do your research and get the chance to really know what St. John's is and show that you're applying with intent. That can definitely help. So we know you're here on purpose, that you want to be here. I think there are some, and I always hesitate to mention these in response to questions like this because these are optional parts of the application. And again, they are actually optional. This is not me hinting to you like, oh, you better do like an interview, it's because but if you find yourself doing your application, you're just like, I just want someplace else to say a little more about myself, or I want someplace else to talk a little more about why I'm interested in St. John's. Like, I don't think that the book essay has given me enough space to do that. Then we do have these other places. There are some optional short answer questions about your interest in St. John's, or just to tell us more about yourself. And you can always schedule a virtual interview with a counselor. And they'll just kind of chat with you again about kind of who you are, your interest in St. John's, and it can add a little more depth to those parts of the application. Again, I want to emphasize that many applicants don't do any of those things. They really are optional. But I think those are there for you if you are working on your application. You're like, I need another space. I need another forum to address things about myself, or to add about myself. Then we're always happy to receive those pieces, or to schedule an interview. We're always enthusiastic to do that if you want to. Yeah, I don't know. I think those are the main things that I always mention. Yeah, anything other than that? Anything I've missed in terms of the application process and standing out?
Um, no, I think that's really well put. I will say, part of I think the best part about working at a smaller school is that we have the luxury of getting to know our applicants really well. And so you will be assigned to an admission counselor very early on based on your geographic region. And you have the opportunity to keep in touch. And it is literally our job to help you through the application process, the enrollment process, and to answer questions. And so I would just encourage you to reach out and utilize that opportunity, that relationship. And I think that's probably my favorite part, is getting to know students in that capacity. And I think that, again, that's so much more telling than anything that I'm seeing in the more quantitative parts of the application.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. When I applied to St. John's and other colleges, I was afraid I would somehow irritate my counselors by like talking to them. And that is like the opposite of the truth. I was going to tell people I got this job at St. John's right about when my family and friends were ready to pay me a salary to stop talking about St. John's. So seriously, like that is not only is it like literally our job to help you, but I think I speak for all of us when I say it's one of our favorite parts of the job is when we get to talk to you, whether it's by email or by video chat, or someday in person again, and just kind of answer questions and share with you like what St. John's is, what the applications process like, and demystify anything that still seems mystified. Is that a right word for that situation? But yeah, so please, please, please don't think like, oh, my questions aren't urgent enough, or I'm only a junior, or yeah, like reach out to us. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you throughout the process. And you'll be able to see on our website also which counselor works for each region. So even if you haven't applied it, you can kind of see, here's the person who would be working with me if I applied. And you can contact any of us, but they're usually kind of your main resource here at St. John's. Yeah.
I think people in the St. John's community tend to be aggressively friendly. And I think you're absolutely right. We love talking about this place. And that actually leads in well to the next question that came in. What do Johnnies do for fun other than study the great books?
Yeah. I mean, we do think that's pretty fun. But yeah, so there are somewhere between, in each given year, like I'd say 35 to 50 student clubs and organizations that are active on each campus. And that number varies a little just because it's so much dependent on student interest. Both campuses have a student government that distributes funds. You can charter a club, get funding from them very easily. I know most colleges say that. I've never been to a presentation where they say it's really hard to start a club, but slightly embarrassing personal anecdote. When I was a student, I chartered the St. John's College Kazoo Corps. I went to the student government. I was an officially chartered club. I received funding. I used the funding to buy kazoos. We had a great time. So if anything, it's arguably too easy to start a club about whatever you're interested in and get some funding for that. Some of the mainstays on each campus are going to be intramural sports, which I highly recommend. If you, even if you haven't been in part of sports before, I think the intramural sports program is best summed up by the call and response chant of one of the teams in Annapolis, the Guardians. The name's a Plato reference, of course. And during games, they'll sometimes shout, "Pon thumos, ou techne, pon thumos, ou techne," which is ancient Greek roughly translated for all spirit, no skill, all spirit, no skill. And that's sort of the rallying cry. And I think in some ways, it's not true that there's no skill. We have some very good athletes here at St. John's, but I think that that accurately portrays the emphasis of intramural sports, which is a lot more on having a good time, releasing some energy by running around a field. So a lot of students participate in that. Theater is very popular in both campuses. You'll see plays staged ranging from, I think just last year in Santa Fe, there was an all sophomore production of like a translation of a Sophocles play that they'd done themselves, to more modern works. Even experimental stuff like student written one acts performed in a randomized order every night. I think that's in Annapolis. They call it what is it? Too much light makes the baby go blind. It's sort of like a mini theater festival that happens every year. Student publications and student writing are popular on both campuses. Student newspapers, the student literary is even too narrow. The student journal, mostly literary, but you'll see everything. I think Energeha in particular, which is one of them, is the slogan of anything that could be construed as beautiful. So you'll see poetry, but also you'll see original math proofs. There are also student events ranging from kind of swing dance parties to your more typical, I never know what to call these. I always say, the lights are dark, we're jumping up and down, that type of dancing. Your more typical dance parties. So you'll get that. And then there are a lot of kind of quirky clubs like the Storytellers Guild, which meets once a week and just like reads stories out loud and has milk and cookies. So yeah, I think it really varies widely. But those are some of the mainstays. Also, of course, Annapolis has crew and sailing teams that actually compete with other colleges at regattas and at. I never woke up early enough to find out what you call a crew competition, but whatever those are called, we have them too. They might also be regattas. I'm not sure. Yeah, but yeah. So there's the boathouse on campus. You can participate in those. Santa Fe has a large outdoor club, so there are organized trips, and you can also sign out for free or for like sometimes like a $5 deposit to make sure you bring the snowshoes back. But everything from like a backpack to a kayak, and there are folks there who will show you how to use them and make sure you know what you're doing before you head out on your trip, or you can attend the guided trips as well. Um, yeah, I think those are some of the big things. Yeah, any clubs, any major clubs I'm missing, any kind of things. I think the main thing I'd like to express about it is just that because we're such a small school, and also because we tend to attract enthusiastic, exploratory people, that sort of applies to extracurricular life as well. Like, this is a great place both to start a club with something you're already interested in, but also to try 3 to 5 things a semester that you have never done before. And it's a very welcoming environment for that. Yeah, I played intramural sports. I started fencing, which I had no idea what to do with, but I really enjoyed. There's pottery studios on both campuses that are open near about 24 hours a day. Visual arts, there's figure drawing classes, so a lot of students kind of get into that. Yeah, so really very. Oh, and music groups. I don't think I mentioned music. There are choruses and instrumental groups on both campuses as well, ranging from Tunes at Noon, which is sort of a jam band bluegrassy group that meets in Santa Fe once a week, outside weather permitting, and plays whatever they feel like playing, to a full orchestra, doing a much more kind of typical repertoire for a concert at the end of the semester. Yeah, anything else that either of you guys would add?
You actually told me about some clubs that I didn't know we had. It seems like it's a constantly evolving list, and I think we, as admission counselors for St. John's, tend to focus so much on the program because it is so unique that we sometimes forget to mention that Johnnies are normal college students, and they have in many ways normal social lives and are over involved in extracurriculars and athletics. I think the one difference between a Johnny and maybe a student elsewhere is that the Great Books program begins to permeate every aspect of your life. And so it's not unusual to be at a party or out on a crew shell, I think. That's what we decided. Yeah, but talking about Plato or Aristotle, and you have a group of students that are all doing this same program. And so you have this sense of community and cohesion that is unlike anything else, because you just have common ground intellectually to chat with people.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true that you have this like automatic common ground. And actually, I think we may have a couple more questions, but that actually leads me to something else that I think is worth mentioning, because you also have this very tight connection with the alumni body. Um, I think maybe more so than anywhere I've seen, just because you're doing a program that they've done. You're taking the classes that they've taken. By the time you graduate, you and any given St. John's alum are going to have like at least 100 books in common to talk about. So that means that that sort of leads me to thinking about kind of the alumni network generally and how we prepare St. John's students for what they might want to do after St. John's, in ways outside of the ways we talked about preparing them to the program. So first of all, there are a lot of great alumni contacts, and we have 2 offices. They've named themselves different things just to make me remember both. The Career Services Office in Annapolis, the Office of Personal and Professional Development in Santa Fe. They share the same goal. They work together, and that goal is to help you kind of connect with the outside world and think about what might I want to do after I graduate. One way to do that is just corresponding with alums in a potential field or doing job shadows. Like by the time I graduated, I thought I might be interested in the legal field. I decided it wasn't for me. Obviously, here I am in higher ed. But I job shadowed with an alum who worked for the Department of Justice, and just effectively was able to follow her around for the day and see what she did and kind of talk with her about like what that career was like. I have other friends who just connected with Johnny's in like astronomy. There's actually a good number in the sciences who are super willing to mentor you just about what it's like, going into their field, what other contexts you might want. And then in addition, St. John's actually has funding to pay for summer internships or even summer coursework. So if you find a great internship at an organization that you really love and you want to check it out, but it's unpaid and you'd also like to, eat and things during the summer, St. John's can give you a stipend of up to $4,000, I believe it is, to cover your expenses during that summer internship. You can apply for those for every summer. I know many people who received been funded 2 or 3 times, and I don't know anyone who has applied twice and not been funded at least once. They're not designed to be competitive. St. John's really wants to kind of help as many students pursue these internships as possible. And then even with coursework, if say you're like, I'm interested in linguistics, I love that we study ancient Greek and French here, but I'd like to go study, say, some Arabic. And I found this great summer program that would do an Arabic intensive. You can actually, even though it's not an internship, you can apply for funding from St. John's to help defray the costs of doing that sort of course of study. So I really recommend taking advantage of that as much as possible. You can apply as a freshman. You can definitely go to the Career Services Office as a freshman. In fact, they will be super excited if you come meet them your first semester. And because this is a small college, they'll get to know your name. They'll get to know your goals and kind of where you want to be. And they can really offer you a lot of personalized attention and help. So I do really recommend that. Really, anywhere you go, if any college offers you free money, take as much of it as possible. Do as many internships as you can. That's general advice. Definitely at St. John's, there's a lot available. So yeah, please do take advantage if you come here. Yeah, and I think we've got a few more minutes here. So we'll see if anything pops into it.
David and Armando, are you seeing any other questions on your end? I'm assuming we're all sharing the same list.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm taking a look right now. I know how to use Zoom. Oh, so one question I'm seeing is kind of how the process of transferring between campuses works now. So yeah, so that's actually a very, very straightforward, very kind of simple process. It's the same curriculum, so you don't have to change anything. There's no worry about credits transferring, anything like that. It's the same college. All you do is sort of say that hey, sometime I think it's like February, you say like, hey, I might like to go to the other campus next year. You just turn a one-page form to the administration, and the only restriction on it is they want to make sure that, one campus doesn't all decide at the same time to go to the other campus. They want to make sure there's going to be a bed for you, a room for you when you get there. Still balance it that way, but otherwise you can do that as often as you want. And also, if you switch campuses and then decide you want to go back to your home campus, that's always prioritized. So it's not going to be like, well, you're out there now, so you're going to stay out there. You can always come back, if you only want to do one year time. It's kind of like domestic study abroad, and I really encourage you to take advantage of it. About a third of students do.
I think that might be all the questions that I see coming in, unless I've missed anything. So maybe just to wrap up, I will say that despite the pandemic keeping us all at home, there are definitely still ways to connect with the admission office at St. John's. You heard us talking before about reaching out to your admission counselor. We also have virtual tours, virtual visits, open house events, different activities throughout the year. So please go to our website at sjc.edu, and you can click on visit campus and see all kinds of ways to visit with us virtually. I want to thank you all for being here so much. I mean, none of us are immune to Zoom fatigue, and so we really appreciate you tuning in, and hope that this was helpful. And please continue to reach out to us, and good luck with your university search.
I want to thank each of our presenters from St. John's College, and I want to reiterate and thank you for joining us for this session. When you close this window, there'll be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. This is just one of many sessions being hosted. Be sure to sign up for additional ones where you signed up for this one. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings, again, at the same place that you registered for this session. Once again, thank you to our presenters from St. John's College, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.